Hi, everybody. Will, welcome to Forever Unbreakable. Today I've got the guest Tommy Byrne. Tommy's a kid I went to high school with who, in high school, if you would have told me that Tommy Byrne was going to be a runner, I would have laughed at you. Having seen him on the wrestling mat, dude was an animal on the mat, but wanted nothing to do with the cardio side of the sport. And to say that he was going to do a marathon, I would have told you no. An ultra marathon at a 50K, I would have told you no way. Much less a 100-mile ultra runner. So Tommy's got some huge accomplishments there. But I think his biggest accomplishment that we're going to get into is the nonprofit Bigger Than the Trail that he started, and how he went about beating mental health himself, and the struggles that he's gone through there. And I think Tommy will agree that that's a bigger accomplishment than probably getting through a 100-miler because of the mental struggle just in life in general. So we're gonna get into that stuff. But Tommy, feel free to say hi quick.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and share my story.
Yeah,
So
so it's gonna be a good episode. I've been super excited about this since I first came up with the podcast idea, or had the idea formulated through some buddies. Tommy and I have shared many a miles together, and I was looking today at the number of miles you have. I think like I've got a lot of miles this year. I'm at like 480, and then I look at Tommy's, and Tommy's at 670 something. I was just like, God, you're 200 miles ahead of me since January.
yeah,
So it's awesome. But first thing I want to talk about a little bit is going back to childhood, growing up. So tell us what your childhood was like, what life was like. I know you got a brother, sister.
yeah. Like Will said, we went to high school together. Grew up with uh, brother and sister, mom, dad. Pretty typical. Besides, my dad struggled with mental health um, all the way through growing up. So it's kind of just the norm. I didn't know any better or any different. Um, But yeah, just really enjoyed sports, but didn't really enjoy the process that went into sports
Yeah,
or
and you were
like,
good, man. You were really good.
yeah, and wrestling was my sport. I ran cross country a couple of years, but just did it to stay in shape. Played football a few years to goof off. Didn't really, yeah, just naturally wrestling became my sport, and um, like Will said, running. I used to get picked up on my long runs on cross country meets. So, uh, yeah, I hated running. So to be here and to have a nonprofit based off of running is pretty funny to me.
Yeah, it's something that I still can't believe some days when I like look at it, and I tell people, I'm like, you'd never believe who Tommy was 10 years ago.
Oh yeah,
Like, I mean, there was a point in your life where you were a party animal going down definitely the wrong road.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I picked up running randomly. I ran a marathon in 2010, but I didn't train for it,
Yeah,
and
let's talk about the marathon, the Cellcom Green Bay Marathon of 2010.
yeah. Um, I for whatever reason I thought I wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to show that I could do this, and I thought it would be fairly easy. And training, I like I don't know. I went off just a regular training plan, but didn't do group runs, didn't do anything.
How well did you stay to the training plan?
Uh, well until like 8 weeks out, and then I got hurt, like my knees hurt, or I don't know, my IT band was probably shot because I didn't train right, and I didn't run a single mile for 8 weeks leading up to the race. So I was like,
Not a single mile for 8 weeks leading up to your
that's
first ever marathon, and you hadn't even run a half marathon prior to that.
nope, nope. And I knew I could get myself through a half marathon, and at that time the course was the same. So I was like, if I'm struggling, I'll just cut off and do the half. And originally I had a goal of 4 hours, and because I didn't train, I was like, I'll do 4:30. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know um, what I was doing, so I just found a pace group, and I ran the first half with the pace group, and I
What
was
was
like,
their pace? Do you remember what the pace
it
group
was
was?
it was for the 4:30 pace
Okay,
group,
yeah,
and it was just like, oh, this is really easy.
yeah.
And I didn't have a watch, I didn't have music, I didn't have nutrition, I didn't have anything,
Yeah, no
and
tech.
and so I like just took off, and I was like, see ya. And I started running, and about we got over the bridge, and some guys jumped in, and I was like, oh, you guys are moving pretty good. And I later was like, hey, how fast are we going? And they were like 7:30 pace. And I'm like, oh man, I'm dying. Um, so like mile 20 to like 24, I was barely moving. And I think I ended up finishing like 2 minutes ahead of the 4:30 pace. But I was wrecked. I was puking in the parking lot. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, I remember seeing you at my house after the marathon. We're all hanging out having beers. This was long before I ever thought I would run myself. And Tommy comes rolling back, just walking, completely defeated, completely defeated. And you can't call it walking,
Yeah,
limping back and just like, I will never run again.
pretty much. And I didn't run again for 5 years.
Yeah, it was a long time before you ran again.
Yeah.
And the next time you ran was another marathon,
It was a
wasn't
half.
it?
It was a
Or
half.
was it a
It was
half?
Green
Yeah, yeah.
Bay, the Selcom half, because
Okay, yep.
my brother had challenged me to a half, and I remember it was like March. I logged my first training run, and my comment was, "I'd rather be eating Oreos than running." And again, still didn't know what I was doing. Just ran fast, ran hard, and knew I was going to beat my brother. Like that
Yeah,
was the
and
only
your
goal.
brother hates that because he trains, or he used to train a little bit more than he
Yeah.
does now, I think.
So, so that was definitely an experience too, and I like to chat when I run, and a lot of people don't like that. So he was like, "Get away from me." So, but yeah.
Yeah, so that led to the race that I'm talking about
Oh
now,
yeah.
the Fox Cities Marathon. So Tommy, to paint a picture, Fox Cities Marathon, Appleton, Wisconsin. It's inside UW Fox Valley. Is not where the race is, but like that's where everybody gathers in the morning. It's usually pretty cold that day, especially in the morning. It's like a September race, late September race. And Tommy, I run into Tommy and Brandon, and Tommy's got what he calls calf socks, but they're like calf sock, like Fruit of the Loom type level calf socks, not actual compression sleeved calf socks designed for that. And Tommy's like, yeah, everybody's got them, so I got them. And I was like, what are you wearing, man?
I didn't want to spend the money for the good ones.
It was awesome. So we're laughing before the race, and what was your plan going into that race?
I wanted the Boston qualifier, so I wanted to run a 3:05.
Yeah, and how much training had you done before this one? So you did the Cellcom, you learned your lesson, maybe not.
Yeah.
That
I
not
had
training
about
isn't good.
I had about 35 miles of training for the half marathon, and probably I had less than 200 miles that whole year.
Yeah, and you
Uh,
thought you could qualify for Boston.
yeah,
That's what I love. That's what I absolutely love about your personality. Is it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna put my mind to it and I'm gonna go do it. And you're a guy that, from everything that I've seen in running and racing and other aspects of your life, when you need to turn something off and engage something else in your brain to make you be successful, you do that. Whatever it takes. And during the Fox Cities, I ran the Fox Cities half that year, so I got to be done far before and go hang out at the finish line, well rested, couple beers in me, and you were really close to actually qualifying for Boston. You ran in what, like a 3:15, I think.
yeah, 3:13.
Yeah,
So
3:13.
I was happy, but I was wrecked.
Yeah.
Those wonderful calf socks, those compression socks. My mile one, I was reaching down trying to pull them up because they were falling down. So
So the whole way, just doing that
yeah,
on less than 200 miles of training, not dedicated training. Like,
yeah.
what was your nutrition plan going into it?
I didn't have a nutrition plan.
Yeah, exactly.
There was none.
Like,
There was just take some calories in and run.
and you still ran a 3:13, and that's that ability to just turn it off. Because like when you were coming towards the finish line, like you could see that there was nothing left in you.
Yeah.
Like just cash. Did you have to go in the medical tent there?
Oh yeah.
I thought I remembered that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty defeated. Mentally, it's one of those things where for so long it was like, oh, maybe I really can get this time, and then uh, all of a sudden you realize, crap, like I'm not gonna get
Yeah.
it, and then mentally you have to fight that battle of, do I keep trying to push or do I just like walk it in?
So at what point did you realize in the race that Boston qualifying was no longer going to happen? Because now you had a
Ah,
watch, didn't you, at this point?
yeah. I
So
mean, I knew what I was, or I knew my time. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just towards the end, last couple miles, I knew like, okay, I'm fading pretty quick here. But yeah, just kind of got really frustrated in my own head because it was, you know, your watch distance isn't exactly the same as the race distance. So you're like, okay, I got it. Nope. Okay, what the heck? It's 26.2. Where's the finish line? Like, I'm chalking it up as a marathon. I'm done.
yeah,
So,
that's the worst
uh,
part is when you see the flags, the mile marker flags, and you're like, they're wrong. They're These
yep,
miles are long miles. Whoever did this check is I hate them and I can't wait to punch them in the nose.
yep, exactly. So, but yeah, lesson. I mean, it was good. It was a good experience, and I still didn't like running at that point.
Yeah, so what made you, I guess, what changed your mind in running and made you want to run more? Because now, like now you log more miles than like anybody I know. I mean, through you I've met some other ultra runners that throw down some serious miles like yourself, but like prior to you, I didn't think people could run that much. Like I didn't
Yeah.
think it was possible.
Yeah, it really. So my brother, who who had challenged me, and then we ran the marathon together. Um, he ran his second marathon 2 weeks after that marathon, and it was a trail one down at the North Face, Wisconsin. And I had a friend um, that was running the 50 miler. So seeing the trails and seeing the raw emotion that people had when they were finishing the 50-mile race, I was hooked. And I made a pact to myself that year that the following year I was going to run a 50-mile race.
So were you thinking that you might have to train to be able to run a 50-mile
Yep.
race, or did you think that I'm Tommy Byrne. I've done this. I've done this for 2 marathons on legitimately no training. I
No.
can go do this on no training.
No. I set a goal of a time goal like that day. I'm like, I'm going to finish in 8 hours.
Yeah, which
Uh,
is crazy for 50 miles on the trails because what is like, just explain to people how much elevation there is on trails. Because every time I go run the trails like at Baird's Creek or anywhere, I get crushed in like the first 3 miles. And I can go out and run. I equate 3 miles on the trail to like 10 miles on the road.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many feet of elevation change North Face has. Maybe 3 or 4 thousand. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not that challenging in the vertical sense. If you're running flat, it is. Like if you're running on the roads and that's all you do. Um, but it's just different. You're working different muscles uh, and again, I didn't have any clue. I just was like, this is the if I'm gonna do this, I want to run it hard.
Yeah.
And 8 hours seemed like within reach, but not absolutely crazy. But I knew that it would take commitment and actually like a plan. And I got lucky. The guy who finished, Mark, who finished the 50 miler, I hooked up with him and the group of guys who were avid ultra runners and trail runners and got hooked up with them in the morning. And that's how I became a runner, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, because that was a huge transition for you to go from really not being a runner. Doing a marathon here or a marathon there is very different than being a runner.
yeah.
You know, so to go and do the distance of 50 miles, like to me, I've done numerous marathons now, even Ironmans, and I'm like, I keep talking about this ultra thing and I keep just kicking that can down the road. Like, ah, it'll be there next year, it'll be there next year. But like, I mean, what goes through your mind to like talk about the start line that day? Your first ultra, because that was your first ultra, right?
I ran
Or
a
did you do
50. I ran a
50K?
50K. So
Okay.
I was part of a 100-mile relay at Kettle 100 in June of that year, the following year. And so I saw people running 100K. I saw people running 100 miles for the first time, and it blew my mind. Like, oh man, I thought I was doing something that was worthwhile. And seeing people finish 100 miles and like having a group of 4 guys put down 100 miles, um, it was awesome. But so yeah, I did run a 50K in June of that year. So I ran. That was my first official ultra, I guess, distance wise. And I was wrecked, like stomach wise, nutrition wise. So
Yeah.
from June to September, I was like, I need to figure out nutrition, or this is going to be miserable, and I'm never going to want to run again. Uh, and I just worked on eating while I was training, and didn't really nail it, but didn't feel as miserable when I did toe the line of the 50 miler. So
Yeah. The nutrition. Nutrition is ridiculous. Like you went out and hired a coach before you went after you did the 50 miler before you went
100.
onto the 100. But like nutrition, man. Talk about nutrition for a minute cuz I've taken a ton of your knowledge on nutrition and applied it to this world record attempt and the things I'm doing to where I've changed my diet completely and gone on a diet, something that I refuse to do. And like you were the kid that would, like you said with the Oreos before, like you would come home, smash a thing of cookies, and be like happy as could be.
Oh yeah.
Tons of sugar back in the day and all that stuff. And you worked your diet. So talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, I just realized I really enjoyed running. Like after I put the time in, but I couldn't. Like I was just miserable after long runs, and uh, nutrition is so often overlooked. Like you can put the time in and run, but we often forget nutrition and recovery. Uh, and I knew that um, if I wanted to continue to do this, I had to figure out nutrition. And within 10 days of finishing my first 50 miler, I signed up for a 100 mile. And that's when I'm like, you know, this is, I don't know how many 80% nutrition is
Yeah.
what gets you to the finish line, because people have GI issues. And once you can't take in calories, your body just starts shutting down. And I knew that I'm one of those people that would push through, and like if I said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So you also read about ultra runners having adrenal fatigue and all sorts of internal problems because
Yeah.
they just burn out, and they burn out their systems because you're doing stuff longer than you should be doing for most people.
Yeah, I mean 8 hours of nonstop running.
Yeah,
Because what did you finish North Face in?
750 something.
Yeah, so you made your goal, and where did you place? Because you placed really well.
7th or 8th or something.
Yeah,
So
overall for a first like 50-mile race, that's incredible. Like people just don't do that.
yeah,
But a lot of that was that you had started to figure out your nutrition,
yeah.
and you were how late in the race were you still able to consume food?
That race, I had I ate food all the way through. Like um, I had like a pancake mix thing that I made with just bananas and whatnot, and I just knew that okay, at every aid station I was going to eat something. I was going to force myself to eat,
Yeah,
and it worked out. And then like Will said, I hired a coach mainly. Well, one, I hired Jeff Browning, who is an elite athlete. He's 46 years old, and he has the 100-mile distance dialed in like nobody
yeah,
else.
that guy's he's a freak.
And he had recently transitioned to the ketogenic diet, which intrigued me. So I was like, I think this is what I want to go about, and I want to make sure that I didn't go into my first 100-mile race and never want to run again.
Yeah,
And yeah, just switching over to that and learning more about how your body breaks down sugars and glucose, and what you need to have for energy to continue moving forward. It just made a lot of sense, and it really did work out. I had a couple races before my 100 miler that I was able to try it, and I was very successful.
so what races did you do leading into the 100?
I ran a 50K in Washington State, Yakima 50K, and that was my first experience with real vertical. It was almost 10,000 feet of vertical gain, like 3,600 feet in the first 3 miles.
Plus it's elevation too,
Uh,
isn't it? Or not so bad?
that one's not bad. But it was real mountain climbing. Like it was really like 3,000 feet up, 3,000 feet down, 3,000 feet up, 3,000 feet
Yeah,
down.
and on trails, so it's not like a road.
Yeah, it was very, very technical.
Like,
And yeah, it was a good experience. Um, and then I ran Ice Age 50 back in Wisconsin and ended up taking third with a 723 or 727 or something. Um, so
that's insane.
my nutrition was spot on, and uh, it felt good. So then I had my 100 mile in June, um, which also went really well. So
So talk about the 100 mile Bryce Canyon. I remember before because Bryce is at what elevation?
um, I think
Like,
it's at average of like 7.5 maybe.
yeah, in Green Bay, Wisconsin is like 400 feet or something. I don't even think it's that. I think we're at like 200 feet or something.
Uh,
But like you were doing the what are they called, like the hypoxic chambers or whatever?
yeah, I picked up a kit called Alto Labs, and it's a oxygen simulator. So you monitor your blood oxygen level, and you cycle on and off of this for like an hour a day at different times throughout the training block.
Yeah, and you were going out and running, like I remember you going out and running Scrays Hill and stuff in the middle of winter. It's like freezing cold and stuff, and you're just doing hill repeats on this thing. And I would look at Strava and be like, man, Tommy just ran for 5 hours up and down Scrays Hill. I was like, what is he doing?
Oh yeah.
But it that preparation, well, the 100 was definitely more difficult than either of your marathons. In many ways, it was potentially easier as well because you had actually prepared
Oh yeah.
yourself by, now you had a coach, you had your nutrition, you were checking your oxygen levels and things like that leading into it. And then you went out there a couple days early to acclimate and stuff like that as well. So like, how was that mentally compared to like marathon one or marathon two, if you can remember those and the mental things that you went through? Like, how was your brain process during the 100 versus those?
Yeah. It's very interesting when you push your body to a new level. So like if you've never ran a half marathon, going from a 10K to a half marathon can be really challenging, and the same from a half marathon to a marathon. You have to run twice as much, and most people that's the natural progression. And I mean, I was broke on my first couple marathons, like
Yeah.
thinking, how am I going to finish? What am I doing? Um, and transitioning from to the 100 miler. Some people do a 100K, which is 62 miles. I hadn't. I've ran a 50 mile. I've ran two 50 mile races at this time, and that was my longest run. So at 50 to 100 was all unknown
Yeah, and that's double the
territory.
distance.
In every race I had leading up to that race, from the 50K to the 50 mile, from the marathon to the 50K, uh, mentally, once I got past the mark I ran before, mentally I was broke. I was like, oh man, 27 miles. I got to get 3 more miles. Like, how am I going to do this? And then from mile, 31 to 40 in the 50, like to get to the 50, you're just like beat and you're broken.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks. And you want me to sign up for one of these?
uh, but it's all mental
Yeah.
because when it was Bryce Canyon's an out and back, so you run 51 miles and then you turn around and run pretty much the same course back. And not once at that race did I get to 51 or 52 or 53 and think, wow, I've never ran this far before. I'm not going to make it. It was just like, this is awesome. I had pacers with me, so I had people I knew that joined along, and there was times where it was a struggle to keep moving forward, but not once did I mentally think I can't do this.
Yeah, which is huge.
And that made the biggest difference in being a successful race versus being a non-successful race, because getting in your own head and thinking you can't do something, or it's 100 miles, like it's hard. Like
Yeah,
it's not
it's
going to
super
be
hard.
easy. So by no means am I saying that, oh yeah, this was a walk in the park. But it really, mentally, I was so focused. And at this point I had started the nonprofit and was really running for something other than myself, and that really helped me.
Dude, it's huge, isn't it? Like it's
Yeah.
significant. Like I couldn't imagine, as I look at like when I did the Ironman for the charity and doing this world record, like when it's something bigger than yourself, it makes training and the race mentality completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like
I'm
you can't fail. There's too much.
yeah. And at the same point, like nobody is going to ever call you a failure, but in your own head, you're thinking to yourself like, no, I can't do this. Like I can't stop.
Yeah.
This isn't me. Like I got to do this for these people. I got to do it for who I said I was going to do it for. Like it it's very it really does make a difference. And right away when I first started running, I didn't, it was just like, oh, personal goals and
Yeah, it's about PRs and
yeah.
getting to Boston and all this other stuff, and it's never about something bigger. You don't realize what you're doing for your brain and like and all that stuff. And then when you get out, and that's why I always tell people, especially with like bigger than the trail, where you can go out and do these charity bibs and raise money and actually have change. Like when you do that and you push that out into the world, like you bring positive change in every aspect, and it really comes and sits in your brain, your heart, your chest. That positivity and that you're doing it for somebody else. It's what I love about my team Triumph. It's what I love about what you're doing with Bigger Than the Trail and things like that. Is like you build this culture, and all of these people stay around you to keep you on the course. As the name of this is Forever Unbreakable is like it's the people around you that help make you unbreakable, and it's that bigger than yourself
Hmm.
that not only makes you unbreakable but keeps you there. I think, and you felt that because that 100 was really the start of Bigger Than the Trail. I feel like as far as like running went, like that's where you really like started to push the brand out there, and this is what this nonprofit is about, and talk more about the nonprofit. But I think that's a good definition of what was going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when I originally finished the 50 miler in September of 2016, like I said, I had runner's high and I had signed up for a 100 mile in Utah, um,
At elevation, just
within 10 days.
stupid elevation
And I
out there.
was talking to my wife, and at that point, I was like, I want to do this for more than just me. Like, I want to share my story on mental health and how I've worked through it personally and just show support for other people. And that's how Bigger Than the Trail came to be, was talking to my wife and be like, hey, I want to run this 100. Can I run it? And I want to run it for more than just me.
So how
And
did you decide to, I guess, create Bigger Than the Trail versus just donate the money or sign up as a charity
um,
bib for somebody else?
and that was so Bigger Than the Trail was this thought of, it really wasn't going to be a nonprofit. It was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to blog about it. And the more I thought about it, was that I can do more. Like, we can do more than that. And like you said, why not just raise money and pass it through for other nonprofits that are doing good things? Because there are plenty of them. And the more I thought about it, is that if I wanted to start a nonprofit and do something that was directly related to trail running and my passion for trail running and for mental health, that didn't take anything away from any of the other nonprofits. And it doesn't mean that we can't raise money and collaborate with another
Yeah,
nonprofit.
absolutely. I mean, we
Uh,
collaborate together
yes.
with Who and Bigger Than the Trail. It's awesome.
So it just kind of like, we just kind of winged it and like, let's do more. We didn't wing it. I mean, there was thought involved, but it was, let's do more than just advocate for it. And that's really how Bigger Than the Trail got to be an actual nonprofit, is that, hey, we want to raise funds and we want to utilize our funds for a specific reason, for a specific purpose, instead of just, hey, I want to raise awareness for mental health. Like, that's a huge aspect of it.
It
Um,
is.
but it's
Absolutely.
also, hey, we have funds and we want to provide support for those that need it,
Yeah.
instead of just, hey, let's share stories. And by no means am I saying that sharing a story is not important, because that's 90% of what we do is breaking down that stigma of mental health.
Yeah,
So,
it feels great to get it off your chest. Like I
oh,
know the mental health stuff that I struggled with. Knowing your story it doesn't even hold a candle to it. But when I'm able to express the things that I've gone through mentally, that have been struggling on me and caused times of depression and times of other stuff. Because everybody looks at us, especially now, they look at us and see this super happy person, and it's because we've gotten that off of our chest. And like we talked about, I think it was last week on a morning run or the week before, is like you've gotta get it off your chest, and then you've got to also like forgive yourself and not hold yourself accountable for the things that happen around you necessarily, and there's a time where you've just got to be like, I couldn't change it,
yeah,
and that's big. Like it's huge to get to that point, and it's not easy, you know. You like touch on a bit of what you went through with suicides and mental depression and things like that.
yeah. Um, Sorry. So I I was around mental health, like the negative sides of mental health from a very young age. Like I mentioned earlier, my dad struggled with mental illness, and when growing up, he was in treatment facilities and trying to manage it the best he could. And eventually, he lost that battle, and he took his life when I was 18. And for me, I didn't know how to handle that. And at that time, I just turned to alcohol and life of the party and trying to just block it out. And it was fine. It was fun. It was a good time, or I thought it was. And as time went on, um, it was there was always something there for me, like that I struggled with, and whether it was just struggling with um, the fact of my dad's suicide, or my personal struggle that I didn't know how to deal with, or I always compared my own battles, I guess, with what I saw in the extremes, and like, ugh, maybe I don't have depression because I don't
Yeah.
feel that, or maybe I'm not manic because I'm not that bad. Um, and I actually struggled with that for a really long time, and I was blessed to have a wonderful woman walk into my life, and even then, like I became sober, and it's
Yeah, how long have you
still
been sober for now?
5 years.
Dude, congrats, man. That's
So
awesome.
thanks.
Like it's a hard
Um,
thing to do.
yeah, and so you know, I thought, okay, maybe if I get sober, things would go back into place, and I wouldn't have these struggles, um, and it was still there. Like there was still this like weird feeling of not necessarily, I don't know, like depression, manic. Like there's just something where I'm like, I just feel off all the time.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, like that was my life, so I didn't know what off was, because it was just I've dealt with this for so long. And I remember coming to my wife one morning and being like, Amber, I need to see a doctor. Like I think something's wrong with me, like mentally.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest conversations I ever had, where I knew she would support me.
Yeah, she's one of the most supportive people that like I've ever met. Like she supports everything that you want.
Oh yeah.
Like she supports you 100%. And likewise, you support her 100% as well. So
Yeah. But
it's a good mix.
it still was one of those, like, mental health in our society is such a stigma, and such a
Dude, it's horrible, man.
it's
It's
just a scarlet letter that we wear, and people don't know how to handle it, and people who don't deal with it don't know how to react. So like I said, I knew she was going to be supportive, but it was still one of those like, like
yeah,
choke it
absolutely.
down and be, honey, like I gotta get this off my chest. And she was awesome, super supportive, like whatever you need, like let's get this together. And I went through the process of seeing a psychiatrist, had to go to counseling because of insurance issues, and
Yeah.
then decided that I would actually take on counseling because I only needed one session, and I took on counseling for 8 sessions and just talked through life and like the things I did growing up and the struggles with my dad, and just really opened up some of the things I felt and like understood, oh, why do I have these feelings
Yeah.
that couldn't explain before? And ended up as a long process because our system is broken. And
And it's still broken. It's
yeah,
super broken.
I don't know, it took me 4 months from like initial call to actually getting diagnosed as bipolar and getting on
Yeah.
some medication. And I've been really lucky that my treatment plan and the people in my life have been really supportive, and it's worked. And from day one.
Dude,
So
it's made you stronger.
yeah,
Like I look at the way that you are today versus the kid that I knew when we grew up. When we were both kids. I mean, we were technically neighbors because we lived within a country mile,
yeah,
living out in the country and stuff. So we'd always go to the Kasich corner and play ball. And the strength of an individual that I remember looking at back then versus, because you were the guy who quit during the run. Like quit during a 5K, you'd just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna be done.
yeah,
And you evolved into a person that's so mentally strong now that you can't be broken. And a lot of that I see it the most existent, obviously, in your running when you go out and you run these hundreds. And at Grindstone, how far into the run were you when you knocked yourself out?
I fell at like mile 10.
So the unbreakableness, right? So you got a concussion. There's no doubt that you got a concussion.
Yeah.
And the unbreakableness took you to where on the course? Like when did you
Um,
finally hang it up?
Mile 51.
And everybody that was there said you should have hung it up at mile 10,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it was that was my second 100 attempt, and yeah, again, like I felt so embarrassed that I had felt like I fell and hit my head and was just out of it, and was dizzy and ended up puking and all
Yeah,
sorts of
couldn't put any nutrition in. So there's
yeah.
no chance of going 100 miles if you can't put nutrition in. Like you can be the best athlete in the world if you can't put nutrition in.
Yeah.
Getting to the mile marker 100 is almost impossible.
Yeah, it was rough because I came in and we never talked about failure. Like we as a crew, as a
Yeah.
as a plan, it was like these are the goals, and then when they didn't happen, I knew my crew was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I knew like I didn't want to talk to them because I didn't want to hang it up. I didn't want to let them know that there was something really wrong. And I kept pushing, and eventually, like Will said, I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't bring anything in, and it wasn't supposed to be that day. Um, and for the safety of myself and the sanity of my wife, mile 51 was when I called it. So
Yeah, dude, that's what I mean. Like your experience in life and the struggles that you went through in life have made you so unbreakable. It's insane. Like if that happened to me today, and people look at me and I hear it from tons of people like, oh, you can accomplish whatever you want because you're Will Koken and people just see you accomplish all this stuff, and I'm like, if I knocked myself out at mile 10 and I had to look at 90 more miles and I was puking and I probably would have hung it up at 12. Like, have you seen my head? Like, take some pictures of this while it's still bleeding or whatever. But you just like, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way that you grew up, the things that you saw. You went out and you got help, and you knew that you needed help, and then that spans into today where you go and do these races and you take a crew with you to ensure that you have that help along the road. And when the help starts to look at you and be like, hey, it's time, it's time that you take a break and we regroup and we attack this a different way, of life. That same picture is saying the same thing, like, hey, Tommy, like, let's hang this race up and let's look at another 100 miler, because right now, or we'll come back here next year, whatever we're going to do. But it's listening to those people around you and having them kind of help guide you too. I think that makes a big difference because now you're back again, you're healthier than ever, and you've got future plans to go crush, more races and things where like being out there, that could have killed you.
yeah, it's like you said, we often think of failure as like not getting to the finish line, and you know, you can call it a failure, a DNF, or whatever you want, but it isn't, like, in my mind, it's hard to swallow. It's hard to be like, okay, I set out for this goal and it didn't work out. But like Will said, in life, you just, you know, there's no perfect path you
Yeah.
can go down, and putting the people in your life that are going to tell you when, hey, like, this isn't really smart, or let's refocus, let's regroup, and um, let's do this better next time. I think that's really important. And you know, for the mental health side of things, that's kind of how Bigger Than the Trail really looks at it. Is there's no shame in getting help. Like, we're all tough. You
Yeah,
know, I like
absolutely.
to think of
Yeah.
myself as a tough individual, but um, it's not about me. It's about everybody that I've put in my life that helps me be supportive, and knowing that I have support and that I can go and be me. And when I'm having a bad day, I don't have to be like, oh, I'm good. No, I can say, hey, I'm really struggling today. And that's why Bigger Than the Trail came to be, is like, I have that support and I feel really blessed. And there's a lot of people in, you know, especially in this demographic, that are probably listening to this, um, of the unbreakable mindset of, you know, suck it up, get tough, you
Yeah.
know, pull up your bootstraps. And there is some of that, but there's also a time and a place where, hey, let's let's look at it this a different way, and get the help we need, whether it's talking to someone, whether it is medication, whether it's whatever it may be. It may be different for you, but it's okay to get help.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. It's more than okay. It's encouraged.
Yeah.
Like we and who I always tell veterans, I'm like, I can't help you if you don't give me the basic I need help, or the basic groundwork of, like, I need something. Like, I can't help you. We can't read minds. I'm not going to pretend to read your mind because it's not possible. But the moment that you tell me, like, hey, I'm not having a good day, we can put plans in place, and we can start to action things. And I know you've spent countless hours on the phone with people, and guys from Bigger Than the Trail and stuff, um, working that mental health issue with individuals of all walks of life from all countries, not just even the United States, because you guys now have representation outside of the United States,
Yeah.
and that's huge. And I know, because we talk in the trail runs occasionally, that, like, hey, I had a late night last night helping somebody out. You know, we never talk about the details, because that stuff is private. But, like, you can just tell when you got the opportunity to help somebody the night before or that week, and it feels better for us getting to help somebody that needed the help, and you know that it feels better for that person. And it's a big thing. And what Bigger Than the Trail is doing is so much bigger, and it's making people better. And, like, you look at it and you say, like, yeah, I know it's doing big things, but you don't really know how big what you started is. And that's awesome to me.
Yeah.
Like, there's a following around it, and people are now advocating it and speaking about it and being way more open to share their story. 5 years ago, you wouldn't be sitting here telling your story, because 5 years ago you weren't at a point where you were willing to share that story.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
think.
No, you know, and it is, everybody's story is different, but it is really amazing. You know, whether it be a nonprofit or whether you're just sharing your story, the people that you reach, the people that you encourage, are people that you would never even think about, like, in your day-to-day life, because we all live by the highlight reel. We all
Yeah.
share the highlight reel. Like, nobody's going around, you know, oh, look at my crappy life, look at my crappy
Yeah.
day. It's no, look at this awesome trip I took, look at this awesome picture.
Yep.
But when you're vulnerable and you say, hey, I struggled today, and somebody that might look up to you or might view you as a friend goes, I struggled today too.
Yeah.
uh, and it's when you can share that with somebody and know that it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to let somebody else know, it's pretty rewarding. Yeah,
I
I don't
think
know.
it's I think it's super rewarding. Like, the experiences that I've gotten from Hua with that exact moment have some of them have left me in straight tears. Like I'm a grown man. I'm supposed to be this tough, Ranger qualified individual who's, hardened infantryman who's been to combat and been shot at, and I'm supposed to be all this shit that people that highlight reel that people see on the outside. But it's some of those emotions, of guys or girls that they'll share with you will legitimately leave you in tears after, and it has humbled me more times than I can count since the start of it in 2013. But it has definitely made me a better human being. That is for sure.
Yeah.
And I can see that exact same thing in you. So I know it's happened.
Yeah. It used to be that, oh, you had a bad day, let me tell you about my day, and like that
Mm-hmm.
attitude of judging, or like, I lived a tough life, so your life can't be tough. And that is the wrong approach. And I lived that way for a long time. And then, starting bigger than the trail, and just being more open about it, and being vulnerable, and letting people in, and then being aware that if somebody comes to you and says they're having a bad day, whether you think it's a bad day or not, to that individual, it's a bad day.
Yeah, it could be the worst day of their life.
And it could to you be, wow, well, that was me yesterday and it was fine. But that doesn't matter, because what we're trying to do is help that individual. And that individual is having a bad day. And to have that mindset of, hey, like, I'm here to support you. And if whatever I can do, I'll listen, I'll support you, I'll offer resources, whatever I can do. Uh, it's not about me thinking that's dumb or that's bad
Yeah.
or anything. It's just the end goal is to get that person feeling better. Um, yeah, I don't
No,
know.
exactly. That's it's awesome. There's something else that I want to touch on too, and I'm gonna get the website on here and stuff, but so that people know where they can go get more information about Bigger Than the Trail, and things like that. How many ambassadors do you guys have now?
So we did our first year of ambassadors this year, and we have 19 ambassadors all over the states, and uh, one in Australia.
Yeah, so that global reach,
Uh, I couldn't. His story was amazing, and he's doing amazing things, sharing his story. So I couldn't uh, not have him be
That's
representing Bigger
awesome.
Than the Trail. So
No, and that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter, your race, your ethnicity, what country you come from. It's about the story you have, and going out, advocating, educating, and making it a better place. I always say, like, we had this huge snowstorm and everybody was helping their neighbors shovel their yards, and it was awesome to see. But then the next day, everybody goes back to these lives where we watch the media and just all this garbage bullshit. And it's like, help your brothers and sisters, educate, advocate, make this place a better place to live. It's that simple,
yeah,
right?
we're all affected by it in some
Yeah,
manner, whether it's you personally or somebody you know. So like Will said, it's educating yourself. It's not being naive when somebody does come to you and say they're struggling. Like, oh, suck it up. Like,
yeah.
nobody needs to hear that. uh, and yeah, we can all benefit from showing a little grace to each other, and support. So
Yeah, so to get more info on Bigger Than the Trail, it's www.bttt.com,
dot run,
right? Or dot run?
dot
Dot
run.
run? All right, sorry about that. But I'll have that. It'll be on here right now on the screen and stuff like that. So then you guys can go access it real easy. If you've got any questions or want more information, there's a ton of good info on there. I believe you're redoing the website right now.
Yeah, we're
So,
redoing the website to just have a better message, give more clarity to what we do. But basically, we have funds that if you're struggling, we provide online counseling services through a service. If you want to better advocate and get educated yourself, we'll work with you to try to find a class or a certification and get you involved in that way. And then again, we have some gear that we're gearing up to sell, and
yeah, like the
uh,
hat,
yeah.
rocking the hat.
So, but yeah, really just getting people out there sharing the story, and it's not about running. But running is my passion, and where I spend a lot of time, so it was a natural fit. There's a lot of correlations with ultra running and mental health and struggles and teamwork and all that. But at the end of the day, if someone's struggling, and we can help, we want to find a way.
And that's
So
exactly it. It's all about mental health. There's no stigmas there. There's nothing like that. So please check it out if you're considering donating as well. It's an absolutely great organization to donate to. I stand behind it 100%. It's one of the reasons why HUA partnered with it, and we work together, and it's tremendous success. So do not hesitate to donate there. It is a great, great organization. If you've got questions, Tommy and the rest of the board and team that he's got around him is fully able to answer your questions. So now that we're getting here towards the end of the time, I want to touch on two things. One, Tommy's done a pretty good job of, I think, explaining what Unbreakable is to him. But I'm going to give him an opportunity to kind of touch on that one more time on what he thinks or how he defines himself as an unbreakable person.
unbreakable. I would just say that it's going about your day and putting your best foot forward, and no matter the outcome, it's waking up the next day and putting your best foot forward. Whether it's, you know, to me, failure is when you don't get back up. And as long as you get back up, whether it's a race, whether it's that day you lose a job, whatever it is, as long as you get back up and put your best foot forward, that's unbreakable to me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And so your last 100 was Grindstone.
yep.
We came up short. So getting back up and putting that step forward leads you to where here in September?
Yeah. I was gonna do Grindstone again. I have the map up in my treadmill room, and it's motivation. But I will be unable to for a wedding, so I am doing Run Rabbit Run in September out in Colorado. So
Yeah, so that's at elevation. What's
yeah,
the climbing on that thing?
it's
I remember looking at it and I was like, that's stupid.
I don't know. It's like 22,000 feet of climbing or something. So yeah, it'll be a challenge, and again, it'll be. I have personal goals, but the biggest goal is to spread awareness and to run for bigger than the trail, and share my story with people on the trail. So
Dude, that's what I love right there is that the goal is not about finishing. The goal is about raising awareness. Like, and that's what I've tried to explain to people with this world record is everybody thinks all that I might care about is breaking a damn record. I don't give a shit about that. Like, I'm able to raise a whole bunch of awareness because I've got the media that's fueling off of this world record. They don't fuel off of Hua and,
hmm
bigger than the trail. But you go out and do something stupid, or whatever you want to call it, crazy, like run 100 miles, and you get this attention around it. And it allows you to advocate. And that's what I explain to people. I'm like, I'm raising a whole bunch of money off of this world record. Like, who cares if I break it or not?
yeah,
And that's what I think is super powerful about what you just said is that you get to go out and you get to advocate for bigger than the trail. You get to educate a bunch of people, spread a bunch of awareness, and you're going to be able to raise more money to help more people.
yeah,
And that's huge. And that's what bigger than the trail is all about is that doing, yeah, you might be out there trail running or maybe you're doing XYZ and that's what you're doing, but you're doing it for something bigger than yourself. And I think that's huge. You absolutely hit it on the head. I fucking love it. Like, it pumps me up because I just wish more people would realize it, and I think it makes me a happier person. I see it in your face and your smile and stuff that doing things for other people makes you happier
yeah.
than doing it for yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I love it, and I do have aggressive goals personally, like because I think that makes it worthwhile. Not worthwhile. It makes it reaches more people when you go to bigger races and when you push harder and you are successful. But at the end of the day, that is not it. Like if I finish dead last, but I'm able to spread awareness and to share my story with,
You won.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you won. It's like you won the race then.
Yeah, because the next time I go out in a race, I'll set another goal and I'll try to reach it. And if I don't, the ultimate goal is to spread awareness. So
Yeah.
that I know I can do every time I step up to a
Yeah.
starting line. Um,
It's awesome. I mean, you can see
so,
the smile on your face right now. Just talking about it. Like you get super passionate. It pumps me up.
so
And the other thing that I want to bring up, so that's one of your what's next. The other one is you've got a kid due in less than 30 days.
oh yeah.
How
So
exciting!
we're really excited. It's been a long time coming, and didn't know if it was going to be a possibility. So that is priority one, and yeah,
So that means our runs are earlier now.
yep. We just have to wait a few months for the baby to be in the stroller, and then we can push the baby around.
The kid's
So
got no idea how fast he's going to be pushed.
so, but
We'll be safe, Amber. But
yeah,
congrats to both of you guys, man.
thanks.
That's awesome.
So
That's beyond awesome. So I'm excited to see what you do. I know that you still have no idea whether it's boy or girl, right?
nope.
Just hanging on.
So
That's crazy. I love it. Anyways, you got anything else you wanna push out to the world, Tommy, via this podcast? We're definitely gonna have you back on for some more podcasts because there's a whole bunch of stuff that an hour just isn't enough time to cover.
yeah, I just really appreciate the time, and just if you're questioning whether you should share your story, whether it be whatever it is, I just encourage you to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable, and when you stop caring what others are going to view negatively about you, is when things really happen, and you learn who your true friends are, and you really reach people that you're able to make a difference. So I stand by that 100%, and I just be brave, be bold, and share your stories, whatever they are, share them. So
That works, man. It works. You know, you've been a huge inspiration to me the last few years since you made these changes in your life, and it's been super exciting to watch.
same, man.
Like
So
it's a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and hope you guys all have a good day, week, month. But please share your stories and ask those around you how they're doing, because they might just tell you they're having a bad day, and you might be able to make that difference. So,
definitely.
in the meantime, stay forever unbreakable. Thanks for tuning in.